In this video, I'm going to use StatCrunch to create a discrete data frequency histogram and relative frequency histogram. The data set that I'm using is here. It's a sample of 50 households where they were asked how many cars are in the household, and this data is coming from the United States Bureau of the Census. You can either pause the video now and write all these down and type them into StatCrunch, or you can, I'll give you a link in just a second so you can go and copy those and paste it into StatCrunch. I'm accessing StatCrunch through MyLabs Plus or MyStatLab. I come in here, I logged on, click on the StatCrunch link, and it gives me a link here that says visit the StatCrunch website. So I click on that, and that takes me to the StatCrunch website, which when you come in has a bunch of stuff at the top here. And then I'm going to click Open StatCrunch to open a new StatCrunch window. And so now I'm going to go get that data that came from the other sheet. I'll show you where you can find that at. So now I'm going to go to a browser and find the data. I've set up a bit.ly. It's bit.ly, just a short URL. So I'll come up here and type that in. It's bit.ly bit.ly/rdilling rdilling underscore cph data. And when I hit enter, it's going to open up this spreadsheet that has the data in it, and you can just copy and paste it from here. This is a read-only. Oh, I can edit it because it's mine, but when you open it, it'll be view only. And so here's where the data starts, and I'm going to click in the top box and then scroll down, and I'll hold down the shift key, and then click the bottom, and then I'll right click here to copy it, and then I'm going to go over to StatCrunch, to the window I opened, and paste it in there. So here's my StatCrunch window. I've copied the data from that spreadsheet, and then I'll hit Control V and paste it in, and I'll just double check. I'll scroll down here, and there should be 50 data values in there. Okay, so all the data is in there. You can type it in if you want, or you can just copy and paste it. It's bit.ly bit.ly/rdilling rdilling underscore cph data. And the cph has to be capitalized, otherwise it won't work. Alright, now that we have the data imported, let's build a histogram. I'm going to go to the graph menu, hit graph up here. I'm going to do a histogram. Unlike with a bar chart or a bar graph, you can't use a frequency table. You have to put in the raw data. It's one of the limitations of StatCrunch. You have to put in the raw data to build a histogram. And so it's a little bit of a pain to type them in. That's why that data is available for you to copy and paste in. I recommend trying to copy and paste the data in whenever you use it instead of typing it in. So our data is in variable 1, and I'm not grouping it by anything. I'm just doing a frequency histogram for right now. I'm just going to do it as is and see what it looks like. I'm just going to pick variable 1 and hit compute. And notice a couple things. It's made the class width here 1. Well, not quite though. Looks like it's made it every half. Yeah, so it's made it 0.5, because here's a bar that goes from 0 to 0.5, and there's nothing here from 0.5 to 1. And a histogram, we really want the bars all to be touching, so we want to specify that this has a class width of 0.1 or of 1, because we're going up by 1 car each time. So I'm going to go back to the options and edit. So click the options button, click edit, and down here I can change. You can change where the bins start. That's the lower limit of the first class, would be where it starts, but it already knows. It's smart enough to know that I'm starting at 0, because that's the least number of, that's the smallest value in my data set. But I want to tell it the class width is 1, so I'll click in here and type 1, and I'll hit compute. And so now it builds it correctly. It builds my histogram correctly. So I want to put a title on it, give it a title, and I want to label the axes down here. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, one that's already done. So here's a histogram that's already done. I think this one was done in Excel, but I'm going to use the same things. It already says frequency on the side on the y-axis, so I don't need to change that. But I am going to change the x-axis label, and I'm going to change the title. So let's do the title first. Available cars in a household. So to change that, I'll go to Options, Edit. And if I scroll down here, there's the title down here. I'll say type in available cars in a household. And we'll hit compute. And so that puts in the title here. And I want to change the x-axis label to be number of cars. So we'll go back to StatCrunch. And I'll change the label, go to Options, Edit, scroll down, that's the x-axis label. This is number of cars. Hit compute, and we're done. So there's the frequency histogram. And now what I want to do is I want to be able to export this. I've got a couple options to export this, and you can play around with this. If I click options up here, one of them is to save it, but it won't save it to your computer. This is to save it on StatCrunch's website to access later. But I want to be able to upload it and email it and do other stuff with it, so I'm going to cancel out of that. One option I can do is if I hit copy, it tells me right-click the image below to copy it. So I right-click it, and I say copy image. And now if I open a Word document, I'll be able to paste it in. So here I've opened a blank Word document, and I want to paste it in, so I'll just come in here. And I think, oh, I'm in the header. I think what I have to do is actually come up to paste up here and do a paste special. And I'm going to pick bitmap here. I think you can do one of these. Pick one of these, but that'll paste it into a Word document, so if you're typing a paper or something, you can paste it in there. The other option, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it as a PNG file. So I'll come back to StatCrunch, I'm going to close this, come back here, and I'll click Options. And now I'm going to download it. This will allow me to download it as a file. And by default, it's calling it graph.png. So what I want to do is just click and highlight the word graph, not the period. And then I'm going to delete that. I'll hit backspace, delete that. And then I want to name it something else so it's something memorable. So since I'm building a frequency histogram, I'm going to call it FREQ histogram. And I'll hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK, and that's going to open a little dialog, which will allow me to pick where to download it. So here I've already got some images in this particular folder. It's already got my name, histogram, frequency histogram.png. I'll hit save, and it'll save it. I'm using Chrome here, so it saves it down here. So I can click this to see if it came out or if it saved it correctly. So if I click that, it should open up. And there's my frequency histogram. Alright, so now I'm going to build a relative frequency histogram. I don't need to close this, I can just leave this open. And I'll click Options, Edit. And so down here where it says Type, we did a frequency histogram first. Now I'm going to do a relative frequency histogram. So I just change that to relative frequency. I don't have to change anything else. I'll hit Compute, and it makes a relative frequency histogram. And one thing I can do if I want to make it bigger or change the shape of it, I can always click up in the corner here and change the size or change the dimensions. I can stretch it out if I need to. Just play around with it. And notice one thing, because it's a histogram, it has, so this is class 0, from 0 to 1, because it's sort of building it like a continuous data histogram, but this tells us this is the folks with 0 cars, 1 car, 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars. That's why the scale on the x-axis is ultimately going up to 6, but this is actually households that have 5 cars. So that's how you make a discrete data histogram and a discrete data relative frequency histogram and a relative frequency histogram, and how you download it and save it to your computer. All right, good luck.